All right, have you got a big test on the study of words coming up? Feeling maybe a little lost in all those terms like morpheme, significator, and componental analysis? Hey, don't sweat it. We are going to break it all down. Think of this as your own personal study guide to absolutely ace that exam.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to separate the theory of words from the actual practice of defining them. Then, we'll zoom right into the heart of it all, the building blocks of meaning. After that, we'll see how linguists actually analyze that meaning. We'll check out the art of making dictionaries, and finally, we'll look at how technology is changing everything. It's a journey from the smallest part to the biggest picture.
Okay, let's jump right in. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, we've got to get our heads around the two main ways people study words. It's kind of like the difference between a scientist figuring out why something works and an engineer figuring out how to build it. The why and the how.
And here they are, lexicology and lexicography. So lexicology, that's the theory, the science. Lexicologists ask questions like, what's a word made of? How does it get its meaning? How does it connect to other words? Lexicography, on the other hand, is the hands-on practical craft. It's taking all that science and using it to do a very real job, building a dictionary. So you've got the science and you've got the art. They're two sides of the same coin.
Now, to really understand words, you have to start super small. We need to talk about the absolute building block of it all, and that is the morpheme. Now, this isn't a letter, it's not a syllable. A morpheme is the smallest little piece of a language that actually has some kind of meaning or job. It's really like the atom of a word.
And these morphemes, they basically come in two flavors. First, you've got free morphemes. These are the cool, independent ones that can be words all by themselves, like snow or go or chair. Then you've got bound morphemes. These are the clingy ones. Think of prefixes like pre or suffixes like li. They have to be attached to something else to work. They can't just stand alone.
Okay, so we've got the physical parts down, the building blocks. But now for the really big question. How do those sounds we make, or the letters we write, actually connect to an idea inside our heads?
This is where a super important guy, a linguist named Ferdinand de Saussure, comes in with a game-changing idea. He said that every word, what he called a linguistic sign, is like a two-sided coin. On one side, you have the signifier. That's the physical bit, the actual sound of the word chair or the letters chair. And on the other side, you have the signified. That's the concept in your brain, your mental picture of a thing you sit on. And here's the key. You can't have one without the other. They're totally inseparable. Simple idea, right? But hold on a second. That signifier and signified, that's all happening inside our minds. But what about the actual physical chair sitting over there in the room? How does our language connect with reality itself?
Well, the answer comes from something called the semiotic triangle. That's a really neat way to visualize this. So at one corner of the triangle, you have the symbol. That's the word itself, like dog. At another corner, you have the thought, your mental concept of what a dog is. And at the third corner, you have the referent, the actual, real, barking dog out in the world. But here's the crucial part, the thing to remember for your test. The line between the symbol, the word, and the referent, the real thing, is dotted. It's an indirect link. The word only connects to the real dog through our thoughts.
So we figured out how words connect to ideas. But, meaning itself is a pretty slippery concept, isn't it? So now we're going to get into the real nitty-gritty of how linguists try to pin it down and analyze it with some actual precision.
To really break down meaning, it's helpful to split it into three different parts. First up, you have denotation. Think of this as the core, no-frills dictionary definition of a word. The denotation of pig is, a farm animal with a snout. Then there's reference. This is what a word is pointing to in a specific situation. If I point and say, that pig is covered in mud, I'm referring to one particular animal. And finally, you've got sense. This is all about how a word relates to other words, how pig is a synonym for hog, or how it relates to sow or pigler.
So how do linguists get really scientific about these differences? Well, one of their most powerful tools is something called component analysis. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. It's a way of breaking a word's meaning down into its basic, essential ingredients, its semantic features. It's kind of like creating a recipe for meaning.
Just look at this table. It makes it super clear. It's almost like a formula. The word man is made up of the features plus human, plus adult, and plus male. Now watch this. You just flip one of those features, change plus male to a minus, and bam, you get woman. Change plus adult to a minus, you get boy.
It's an incredibly systematic way to map out exactly how words in a group are related to each other.
But let's be honest, language isn't always so black and white, with neat little pluses and minuses, is it? Our brains don't always work like that. And that's where prototype theory comes in. This idea suggests that we understand a category not based on a strict checklist, but based on a best example, a prototype. So when I say the word bird, your brain probably jumps to something like a sparrow or a robin, not a penguin or an ostrich. The sparrow is a much better prototype. And this is a really important idea because it feels a lot closer to how our minds actually organize the world, around a central example. Okay, enough of the deep theory. Let's get our hands dirty. How do we take everything we've just talked about and use it to build the tools we use every single day? Dictionaries. Now we're entering the world of the lexicographer.
Now, if you're writing a dictionary, there are some classic mistakes, some big traps you have to avoid. The first one is called circularity. I bet you've run into this yourself. It's when you look up a word, say demand, and the definition says to claim something. So you go look up claim, and its definition says to demand something. You're just stuck in a useless loop. It's a huge no-no for a dictionary writer.
And here's the other big one to watch out for: obscurity. This is what happens when the definition is way more complicated than the word you're trying to define. Sure, defining air as a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, and other gases is technically correct, but is it helpful? For most people, not really. A good definition needs to be clear and simple, not more obscure than the word itself.
And if you want to see this craft in action, the absolute heavyweight champion of the world has to be the Oxford English Dictionary. Just look at this timeline. It started as an idea way back in 1857. It took decades just to finish the first edition. Then it grew from 10 volumes to 20. And finally, in the year 2000, it went fully online. You can literally see the evolution of this entire field, from pen and paper to massive digital data. And that huge leap to digital brings us right into the modern era. Because technology has completely, and I mean completely, changed the game for both lexicology and lexicography.
So what is this big game changer? It's the language corpus. Now, a corpus isn't just a random pile of books. It's a huge, carefully structured database of real-world language. We're talking books, articles, recorded conversations, political speeches, all of it, in a format that a computer can search and analyze in the blink of an eye.
And to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here, it's mind-boggling. The British National Corpus, which is just one famous example, contains 100 million words. This lets linguists go way beyond just their own intuition and see how language is actually being used on a scale that was totally unimaginable just a generation ago.
So what does all that data actually let you do? Well, you can instantly pull up something called a concordance. It shows you a specific word in hundreds of different real-life sentences. So for a simple word like white, you don't have to guess how people use it. You can see right away they're talking about a white board, a glass of white wine, coffee with white sugar. It reveals patterns and common pairings that you just never notice otherwise. It's all about evidence.
Okay, deep breath. Let's bring it all home. If you're cramming for that test, these are the absolute must-know takeaways. Number 1, lexicology is the theory, lexicography is the practice. 2, words are signs that link a form, the signifier, to a meaning, the signified. 3, we can analyze meaning with precise features or with general prototypes. 4, good definitions are clear and don't run you around in circles. And 5, modern linguists use massive language corpora to study how words are really used in the wild. Got it?
So we've gone from the tiniest piece of meaning all the way to 100 million word databases. But I want to leave you with one final thought. In an age of memes, new slang being invented every day, and instant global communication, language is changing faster than ever before. So the question is, how will the dictionary of the future and all the theories we use to build it possibly keep up? Something to think about. All right, go crush that test. Good luck.